are now in the 7th sloka. Yesterday we were in the 6th, where Shankara contended the various opinions of the Dehavadis known as Charvakas. The Charvakas were the people who used to say that body itself is the Atman. In fact, most of us do consider that. They were known as hedonists, who always used to say there's nothing more than what you see. Don't believe in something you have not seen. Nobody has seen the soul. The body you have seen. So the body is the Atman. The Atman is subject to birth and death. That's all. And there is to be a beautiful shloka as to the main philosophy of the Charvakas. The main philosophy says, Yavat jivet sukham jivet, runam kritva ghritam pibet, bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutaha. As long as you live happily, man. Take any amount of loans from people, eat good ghee, good yogurt. That's how you should live. Runam kritva ghritam pibet. Ghritam means ghee. Drink a lot of it. Don't bother about cholesterol. And you know why? He says, look here, you are not going to get this body when it goes into the cremation ground. So make the best use of it now itself. This used to be the philosophy of the Charvakas. They were known as Charvakas because it appealed to all. Charu Vak, that is Charvaka, whose method of talk and speech was extremely alluring and fascinating to people. People said, yes, he tells correctly here, we should do accordingly. So they were known as Charvakas, the hedonists. So he contended, and simultaneously he contended also against the Buddhists, the Yogacharas and the Sautrantikas. The Yogacharas who held the Kshanika Vijnanavada, that all the external objects are all shunya, are all a void, and it is only the reflection of the knowledge which never remains permanently, the knowledge which dies and arises every moment. There is, in other words, what happens if there is a murderer, every few minutes the knowledge changes. So the murderer is one chap, the person who is taken to the court will be another chap, the person to whom you sentence him to hanging will be a different chap. Because every minute it changes, it's a different knowledge, even though it looks as if it is the same. So this leads to a logic of absurdity. And the Shunyavadis wouldn't take it lightly. They said, oh Shankara, what about the sleeping state? If you say that your Atman is permanent, it's everlasting, in the sleeping state, a man is absolutely unaware of anything. No Atman is ever seen, the light of the Atman is never seen. And you said that all the items, the objects in the world are all seen through the Atma Prakasha, through the light which radiates and emanates from the Atman. Then if it always has got that capacity, then we should be able to see all the objects at night while you are asleep also. How is it that you don't see the world? You don't see any of the objects. That means the Atman is not there. So don't you agree it has to be the void, it has to be the shunya. It is nothing. Nothing would be there. You see, And the Western philosophers or psychologists, all these people have been more concerned with analyzing our waking states. For the first time when William Jones and later on Dr. Freud, there were the two people who started on the dream state. But nobody ever approached the sleeping state. They thought it is an inert state, what is the need for analyzing it. But then Shankara takes up that very sleeping state and analyzes it and shows how the sleeping state proves the existence of an Atma, the existence of a Supreme Being who is your very self. Rahu Grasta, this is the 7th shloka. Rahu Grasta Diva Karendu Sadrishom Maya Samachhadanati Sanmatraham Karano Pasamharanato Yobhut Sushupta Pumani Pragaswapsamiti Prabodhasamaye Yapratyabhigyayate Tasmahi Shri Gurumurtaye Namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. He says, during the sleep, why is it that the Atman is not seen? For that he says, you are daily seeing the sun. But during the days of eclipse, you neither see the sun. If it is a solar eclipse, you don't see the moon. If it is a lunar eclipse, you don't see the moon. Does it mean that the moon is absent or the sun is absent? The sun is never absent. The sun is shining, but then there is an avarana, there is a cover. Of course, mythologically we say the Rahu has covered it, it is trying to eat it. That is what we call. But then, according to the scientists, it is due to the intervention of the moon. The moon comes in between in the solar eclipse. So the sun is shining fully, but that shine doesn't reach us, we are unable to see it because of the covering by the Rahu. So he says here, in the same way, there is what is called Maya or ignorance. So it is that Maya which has covered. The Maya means that ignorance as to who I am. We are identifying ourselves with the body and think that I am Shantananda, I am Mr. X, I am Mr. Y. So it is this Maya, it is this illusion which has covered that reality called Atman. He says, Rahugrasta Divakarendu Sadrisho. Sadrisho means it is just like the Divakara and the Indu. Divakara means the sun, Indu means the moon. It is just like the sun and moon which are in the clutches of Rahu, Rahugrasta. In other words, it is just like the eclipsed sun and the eclipsed moon. Rahugrasta means the eclipsed, the one which has gone to the mouth of Rahu. Rahugrasta diva korindu sadrishaha. Well, there it was the solar eclipse, the moon is intervening, it is covering. What is that covering here which prevents us from directly cognizing that Atma Prakasha, the effulgence of the Atman? He says, Maya Samachhadana. Samachhadana means the covering by the Maya. Maya, I don't want to translate it as an illusion. It is not simply an illusion. As I said, it is an explanation for that inexplicable power which covers that Atman. That is all. So we can't translate it as an illusion, but there is no better word for it in English. So Maya Samachadana, because the Atman is covered by the so-called Maya. Then, what is the real fact? The real fact is, when you are asleep, what happens? When you are awake, the mind works. You are thinking of various things. Then the senses works. The five senses of perception, the five senses of action. The five senses of perception are the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. So all these things, something which tells you what is the form, something which tells you what is the sound, something which tells you what is the smell, something which tells you what sort of a touch, whether hard or soft. So these are all the various means through which you get the knowledge of an outside thing. And then it is the mind which collates and then makes it into a general form. You see a flower, the eyes see that, and there is a buzzing of the bee around it, and the ear hears it. You take a petal and put it in your mouth, the tongue tastes it, and you get the beautiful smell of the rose. And then when you try to pick it up, the thorn pricks you, and as such the touch immediately says, be careful. So that is how you get an idea of the entire flower called rose. So during the daytime, both the things work. During sleep, all your senses are withdrawn. Your eyes are closed, it can't see. Your ears are also closed internally, it can't hear. Thus, all the senses are withdrawn. Karanopasamhrataha. Karana means all the indriyas. Samharana means withdrawing them inside to make them non-functional, to make them inactive. So during the sleep, what happens is, all the indriyas do not work. They neither work during the dream state nor in the sleeping state. But the difference is, in the dream state, the mind works. Actually, the so-called eye, the so-called nose, we call it as golaka. Golaka means they are only the pits, they are only the holes through which the eye operates, through which the ear operates. These cannot see by themselves. They are simple muscles. But then what is it that sees, that cognizes? It is that mind. And that mind has got the reflected glory of the Atman. And because of that power, it is able to smell. Supposing somebody comes and stands before me, and I was thinking of my Himalayas, then I wouldn't be able to see him, even if he stands for 15 minutes. Suddenly I ask him, oh sir, when did you come? He will say, I am standing here 15 minutes, where were you? That is because it is the mind which coordinates. It is the mind which works through all these holes. It is the mind which goes into the nose and smells. So, that mind is operating. So even though your indriyas do not operate during the dream, you are able to see, you are able to hear, you are able to smell, you are able to touch. So all these things you are able to do because the mind alone does the work of all the indriyas, all the senses. So, during the sleep what happens is, the mind doesn't work. There are no waves of thought disturbing you. Not a single thought arises, not even the thought of I, not even the ego. Everything gets subsided. The entire world ceases to exist for you. Even a man who has been subjected to a lot of orthopedic accidents and then he has got, he's suffering and he has got a number of bandages. The moment he sleeps, when he's in deep sleep, the dreamless sleep, he is not aware of any pain. He forgets his body, he forgets his pain, he forgets the world, he forgets himself. So then what exists? Does he die? No. The morning he is able to get up, and in between if you call him, he is able to respond to your call. Then what does it mean? He exists. He is there, but he is only the mere existence alone. And that is called Sanmatraha. Sat. Sat means the existence. During the sleep, he does exist. Nobody says that during sleep a man doesn't exist. We never say. We say he is. He does exist. He is sleeping. That means there is an existence. Sanmatraha. He is just that light. He is just that existence. You see, inside a theater, there is a lot of audience. 100 people are sitting and seeing a picture. The picture is over. Everybody has vacated the seat. They have all gone. The lights are on. Then the lights alone exist. It is not necessary there should be objects. There should be men who should be revealed by the light. The objects depend on the light. If there is no light, nobody can see each other. But the lights do not require anything. It can remain by itself. It can be functional by itself. So the Atman alone remains at that time. How do you know the Atman remains? Is the question of the Buddhists. I say it is all emptiness. It is all void. It is all shunya. But then he says, no, it is not possible. It is not logical. Then what is the logic? Ragaswapsamiti prabodha samayem ya pratyabhigyayate. Pratyabhigya is a technical term. Normally it means a recollection of a past experience which has happened some time back. That is called the pratyabhigya. So for instance, 20 years back, I saw Mr. Natarajan in London. I had no connection with him. At that time, he was having a beautiful twirling moustache, and he used to wear the hat and all that. But now in this form, just with dhoti and with white beard, at that time it was not so. I am seeing him after 20 years. Suddenly the recollection comes, oh, this is the same Mr. Natarajan. Soyam Devadattaha. This is the same Devadatta whom I had seen elsewhere at a different point of time. So this is called the recollection. If somebody else has seen Mr. Natarajan, can I recollect that experience and say he is the same Mr. Natarajan? That means the one who had experienced earlier, he is the same, and the one who is now seeing and recollecting, he is the same as the one who experienced. Similarly, you were asleep. I was just outside in the veranda. I was sleeping. And at night, 12 o'clock, through this place, the beautiful procession of Arunachaleswara went with a lot of drumming and all that. But I was blissfully unaware. I was sleeping soundly. But in the early morning, when once I got up, when somebody said, hey, did you see the procession? No, I never saw. I was sound asleep. Sukhamaham aswapsam. I slept beautifully. I had a very pleasant sleep. So, if you were to recollect an experience of sleep, that you slept soundly, that you slept comfortably, that you slept with some happiness, then you are recollecting that experience. That means you should have been there to experience it. If you are not present at that time, how do you know that I was sleeping? It may be Mr. X was sleeping, Mr. Natarajan was sleeping. How do you know that it was you? Then that means I was present. That means when you were asleep, there was something in you which was alert, which was vigilant, which was a witness of your sleeping state, which was aware that you were sleeping. So it had the awareness of your sleep. It was witnessing your sleep. It was awake when you were asleep. This is called the pratyabhijna. So he says, unless something was there, and that something is the Atman. Even when you were asleep, even when you had no body sense even, this Atman remained. The Atman was the watcher in the tower when you were asleep. So she says, Prabodha Samaye, when you woke up from your sleep, Prabodha means waking up. When you woke up from your sleep, Prag Aswapsam. Prag means earlier. Earlier, I was sleeping. I slept. This pratyabhijnayate. This experience is now being recollected. Pratyabhijna means the recollection of a past experience. So he had the past experience himself, because it is only the experiencer who can tell that I had that experience. If Mr. Natarajan had that experience, I cannot describe his experience. So when also I described that I was asleep, that obviously meant that there was somebody else, an experiencer who was present. It was not an experiencer, it was a witness. So as a witness, he experienced your state of sleep. He had that awareness of your state of sleep. It is that awareness, I call it as experience here. So, who was that? It is that Atman. Who is that Atman? The Atman, or that self, is my Guru. He has come as my Guru. It is the self which has come as my Guru, and it was verily the Dakshinamurty. I prostrate to him who in the sleeping state was awake in me and gave me the recollection in the morning that it was I who slept. So the sleeping state is an important evidence in favor of the existence of an Atman who was there in the sleeping state. Thus you will see, there was one who claimed that he is in the waking state. There is another one who is dreaming, and there is one who is awake even when you are asleep. Or they three different Atmas? If they were different, then in the early morning, you cannot recollect that I slept. If the sleeping fellow was different from the waking chap cannot recollect that the sleeping chap was sleeping. So obviously it means it was the same Atman who was in all the three states. And the one who continues to be in all the three states, but you don't recognize him, he is known as the fourth. It is only a method of telling he is not the fourth. He is the only one who is the experiencer of all the three states: the waking, the dreaming, and the sleeping states. And this has been analyzed very beautifully, especially the continuation, all the three, and especially the dreaming state has been very beautifully analyzed in the Mandukya Upanishad. The Upanishad itself doesn't do analysis. It's a very simple Upanishad, which is barely only 1 page long. That's all. It contains barely 13 hymns. It is only just 1 page. But then, 200 pages of commentary has been written by the Gaudapadacharya, who was the Guru's Guru of Shankaracharya, the Grand Guru of Shankara. And that's called the Gaudapada Karika. In our library we have got the book. It is considered as the topmost authority as regards the analysis of the 3 states. He says, Turiyam Trishu Santatam. This 4th state is not an independent state, which you call the Samadhi state, which you call the superconscious state. That is the state where you are alone with the Atman, where there is no world, where there is no mind, where there is no body, and which is the creator of the entire illusion of the world. And it is also the creator of the illusion of individual souls, Mr. X, Mr. Y, and Mr. Z. And that alone remains, and that is the state which you can reach with practice. That you can reach only by eliminating the world from you. The world you think you have eliminated, even in sleep it exists in the archives of your memory, which is known as Chitta. They are lying embedded. The moment you wake up, they come and catch you. Immediately you remember your appointment, your anger, your enmity, your friendship, your relationships, everything comes. So that is why, even though in the sleeping state, the Brahman alone remains, your self alone remains, unfortunately, the ignorance also remains by the side, just waiting to catch you by the neck the moment you wake up. And that is why it is not of any practical use to us. You have to catch that Atman all alone. When you catch him, you dissolve. He alone is. Then we go to the next one, the 8th. Balyadishvapi Jagradadishu tatha Sarvasavasthas swapi Vyavrittas svanuvartamanam Ahamityantas purantam sada Swatmanam prakati karoti bhajatam Jo bhadraya mudraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. We analyzed the sleeping state. Now he says, why go to that? You analyze yourself. Even the waking state, when you are 3 years old, you saw yourself as a child with chubby cheeks, with rosy and chubby cheeks, and you are walking in a tottering gait. But then somebody called you Krishna. Yes, you responded to the name. Krishna, come here. He will come smilingly. The boy became 12 years old. Now he is tall. He is lean. He is skin and bones. The chubbiness has gone from his cheeks and from his body. And not a single cell has remained the same. When he was 3 years old, whatever the cells were there, all the cells have been replaced. There is nothing of that old Krishna in this one. And he looks differently, with a different hairstyle. So nobody who has seen him in his 3rd year can recognize that child in this boy. But then, still if somebody calls you Krishna, you again respond. Now at last you reach the stage, you are 87 years old, all your 32 teeth have already gone, and you are having wrinkles all over, no anti-wrinkle cream could repair it, and the entire hairs have gone either grey or bald. You are completely different. Nobody can know it is the same Christian whom I had seen when he was 10 years old or 12 years old. He is now completely changed. Again, all the cells which were when he was 12 years old, they have been completely replaced, completely gone. But still when somebody calls him Mr. Krishnan, he again responds with the same promptitude. What is it that has been reminding us Krishnan? All these days, from childhood to now, even though his entire body has changed, not only his entire body, his levels of consciousness have been changing, his knowledge has been changing. As a child, he never knew what he knows as a man of 87 now. Now he is a great scholar. He knows a lot. He can tell Bhagavad Gita from the end to the beginning. So he is a different man. His mind, his thought, everything is mind. Everything has changed, completely changed. There is nothing left. Then what is it that makes him respond? What is it that has remained unchanged all these days when he has been completely changing every cell, every portion of his skin, every portion of his body? Then what is it? It is that consciousness which responded as I, aham ahamiti. So that consciousness is that Atman. The source of that consciousness, is that very Atman. And incidentally, by giving this, Dakshinamurty has done us one favor, that he rids you of the fear of death. How? He says, look here, man, when you lost your childhood, when you became an adolescent, you never wept, oh my Lord, my childhood has gone, that body has gone. Do you weep when you lost that body? Now the body is different. No, you accepted it as a matter of your growth, your natural growth. Then again, when you became an old man, you never grieved over the fact that you have now lost that youth and you have lost that body and now it is a different body and all that. No, then it is an automatic stage that from old age you come to a stage where this body is no longer useful. You just discard it. That's all. The Atman never dies. The person goes on changing his clothes. That is all. And when the garment becomes absolutely useless, well, you just throw it in the dustbin. That is what happens. And you never shed any tears for having thrown it in the waste bin, in the dustbin. The same thing here. So as such, take it that it is only another stage of consciousness. That is all. You are not completely. You see, even when the bulb is fused, the electricity is very much there. The electricity doesn't weep, oh my Lord, I am gone. The bulb can weep, the bulb no longer remains because it has become fused. So who is there to weep? Nobody. And if you put another bulb, it shines. The same thing with us. So why weep for the death? Face it, because we never die. Even a child knows that nothing in this world can die. You know how? You give a 5 rupee note to a small child. Tell him, your uncle has given it, keep it safe. He keeps it in his English workbook. The next day morning when he opened that English notebook, he was dismayed to find that 5 rupee note was missing. Well, if that note was subject to death, he would have assumed that my 5 rupee note has died, so it is no longer here. On the contrary, he knows it cannot disappear, it cannot die. So he goes and asks his mummy, "Mummy, did you take it? Who has taken this?" So he knows it has to be somewhere, it cannot disappear into the void. So even a child knows that. And life is absolutely natural to us. We are always immortals only. Otherwise, we always question anything which is abnormal. We never question which happens every time. Supposing a person has died and you come and tell him, "Huh? Yesterday evening I was talking to him. Why? What happened?" So, death is an abnormal incident. That is why you are asking him. On the contrary, I am alive. Every day 4:15 I am here. You don't come and ask me, "Swamiji, you are alive. How? What happened?" So you have taken it for granted. To be alive is my natural right. To die is something abnormal. So life is natural to us. We are all immortals. Balyadishvapi. See, whether Adi means Balya, etc., youth, etc. That is youth, I mean childhood. Balya means childhood. Then youth or adolescence. Then manhood. Then finally the old age. So in all these states, finally he says avasthasu. Avastha means a state. So what are the states? Number 1, balyadishu. The childhood, etc., the various states. Similarly, jagradadishu. Similarly, the 3 states, the waking state, the dream state, and the sleeping state. In all these things, it is the same consciousness which continues unabated, which you call that Atman. The Atman never dies. The Atman never, one Atman dies, the other Atman comes. It cannot be. If that is so, the Buddhists can well say, well, you had different Atma when you were 3 years old. You had a different Atma when you were 12 years old. And you had a different Atma when you were 87 years old. Yes. If you were to concede it, then how is it this old man who is 87, he recollects, this is the school where I read when he was 5 years old. And he recollects all the things which happened when he was a young man, how he was working in the secretariat, how his secretary was an ICS man in those days. He used to appreciate his English. So how does he have recollection of the experiences of his boyhood? That means the one who is 87 years old is the same one who had had that experience. Otherwise, he cannot recollect them now. So again, in all these states, it is the pratyabhijna, it is the quality of recollection of the past experience which proves that it is only the one Atman which has been continuing in all the states. He says, Vyavartasu Anvartamanam. Vyavartasu. Each state is far different. The sleeping state is far different from the sleep. The waking state is far different from the dreams. So Vyavartasu, even though these various states, each one was different from the other, but Anvartamanam. Anvartamanam is it is continuing in all these states. It was following in all these states. So the Atman continued during his childhood, during his adolescence, during his boyhood, during his old age, during his sleeping state, during his dream state, it was continuing. Vyavartasu anuvartamanam. In what way? How was it continuing? Ahamiti antaspurantam sada. When the boy was 4 years old, when somebody asked, who is Krishnan? He said, I. When he was 20 years old, when somebody asked, who is Krishnan here? He said, I. When he was 87 years old, when he was asked, he said, I. So this Atman is always in the form of I consciousness. It is always vibrating. Spurantam. It is vibrating. You are able to see. You are able to understand that I. It is an inner vibration. You are always feeling I. So, ahamiti antaspurantam sada. Ahamiti means at every time saying I. Antaha, where do you feel it? It is inside. Antaha. Sadaspurantam. There is not a minute when you forget that this is not I. Every minute you say I walked. I went to the office. I went to the shrine. I am now talking on Dakshinamurty Stotra. So that you never forget. So that consciousness, which has always remained the same when everything was changing. The body changed. The blood changed. The cells changed. The tissues changed. But the Atman, which is in the form of consciousness, the I consciousness, it alone remained the same. The changeless among all the changing world. And that is the Atman. Right. When can you see that Atman? When can you come face to face with it? Only through the grace of the Guru. He cannot give it on a plate, but he is the one who can help you to the maximum to reach that stage of self-realization. The efforts have to be made by you. You can only take the horse to the tank. You can't make it drink. That has to be done by the horse itself. So, Swatmanam prakatikaroti bhajatam yo bhadraya mudraya. This Atman, you can never come face to face with it. You can never realize it unless it has revealed itself to you. Swatmanam prakatikaroti. This Atman itself, in its compassion, finally conditions to reveal itself to you after a lot of austerities, after a lot of meditation, after a lot of self-inquiry. A day comes when the self is revealed to you, and it being your own form, your own self, there is nobody there to realize it. Because he had always been reminding that. When you thought the rope was a serpent, and when once you found it was not a serpent, the rope had always remained as a rope. It had never become a serpent for even a while. So this Atman has never become a jiva at any length of time, whether in the past or present at any time. It was only your own auto-hypnosis which led to a delusion. The snake never was, neither in the past, nor in the present, nor in the future. Similarly, the world never was. The Atman alone was. So that sort of a stage will come. Swatmanam prakati karoti. Prakati karoti means it reveals. It reveals what? Swatmanam. The self in the form of the Guru, in the form of the Dakshinamurty, it reveals itself to you. It is the self which has come in the form of the Guru. It is the self which has come in the form of the Dakshinamurty. So it is that self which reveals itself to you. He is called the Swayam Prakasha, the self-effulgent. To whom does we reveal bhajatam? Who want him intensely. Bhajatam has got a profound meaning. It is not the one who says, yes, yes, I would also like to see the self. No. It is not a part-time job. It is not a hobby. You have to take it as a whole-time job. Bhajatam. The one who is intensely after this. The one, because our self or God, he is a jealous God. He doesn't want to share himself along with others. So, Eka Bhaktir Vishishyate, you should be devoted to him and him alone. You cannot have 100 desires and have at the 101st, yes, I would also like to see God. No, it has to be the sole aim and the sole goal of our life. And that is called bhajatam. The one who wholeheartedly is devoted to that inquiry as to where is that self and who is that self. To him, how does he? Bhadraya Mudraya. He comes as a Dakshinamurty and he shows his Chinmudra. And this has got 2-3 names. It is called Jnanamudra. This is called Chinmudra. Chinmudra means the posture of consciousness. Jnanamudra, the posture of knowledge. And it is also called the Bhadra Mudra. Bhadra means that which is auspicious, that which redounds to your ultimate good, where you are rid of all sufferings and hardship, and where you attain to that state of the ultimate bliss, to the eternal bliss, unadulterated by any unhappiness. That is the stage. So he just by this, he is absolutely silent, but this symbol alone, this shows, as I told the other day, this represents the Paramatma. The Paramatma or the Supreme Being that Atman is represented as, in the Vedas it is called Angushtamatra Purusha. He is just of this and he is effulgent inside. I mean, this is all a matter of concepts, only for the technique of meditation. Not that it is the truth, it is not remaining just of this size and all that. There is no size for him, he is formless. So, what about this? This is called the one darshani, that which goes on telling this one, this one, this one. It points out you, you, you. So it points out to the jivas. And when once the both are joined, this shows there is the ultimate stage where the Atman is united in the Paramatman, where that is the ultimate self. The individual self is the same as that supreme self. It is that overall consciousness. There is no individual consciousness. The overall consciousness is just like an immense ocean. In the ocean there are so many bodies which are floating. There are hundreds of bodies which are floating. So, if in the ocean, if there are 1,000 barrels, the entire barrel is filled up with water. Both sides are open. So the entire barrel is filled up with water. Water is on the top, water is in the side, water is below, water is above, water is in all this side.